Hey guys, you're watching B-Tech, I'm Basil, and this is the Honor View10. The View10 is going to be available in January for around £449, and when you consider the specs under the hood of this thing, that is a very, very impressive price. I've been using it for the last week. This is my review. I'm going to jump onto it in a sec, but before I do, quick shout out to our sponsors, directmobiles.co.uk, delivering excellent customer service, award-winning in fact, and deals across the UK for over 23 years. They've currently got a video comparison of the iPhone 10 and the Samsung Galaxy S8 on their channel, and Filofax giving tablets the world over a leg to stand on with the AnyTab 360. Right, back to the Honor View10, a quick overview of the specs, and it's got a 5.99 inch display, so basically 6 inches. It's an IPS display, so not AMOLED, but it looks really, really decent, punchy, vibrant, poppy, despite not having the deepest of blacks. You've also got USB-C. There is a headphone jack, despite this thing being just 7mm thin. So it's got a lot going for it, in addition to the dual cameras around the back. And I'm going to start with the design and the in-hand feel. So the in-hand feel is solid. It's got a flat back. It's a metal unibody. It doesn't feel cheap at all. Also, the fact that you've got this 18:9 aspect ratio means that it's long, and despite packing a lot of screen, there is minimal bezeling. You've got the fingerprint scanner below, and this supports gestures if you want it to, but I've got on-screen navigation buttons. Down at the base of the device is that USB-C and a headphone jack. It supports fast charging, but there is a mono bottom firing speaker, which is a shame, and that's probably one of my least favorite things about it. And that says something, because that's not that big a deal. The phones like the Samsung Galaxy Note 8 have that. So this is looking good from the off. Left-hand side is a very, very good thing. There is a storage card slot, in addition to the fact you've got 128 gigs of storage on here. Right-hand side, you've got the buttons. That's volume rocker button and a power button. Up at the top is an infrared remote control. And around the back of the dual cameras, and you do have a camera bump, but what is sweet is that it ships with a case, and when you do plug the case on, that camera bump is flush with the case. The case has a slight extrusion around the camera so that it makes sure that those camera lenses aren't exposed to being scratched when the case is flat on a surface, which is a nice touch. So value adds out of the box are good. The design is good. It isn't mind-blowing. I do prefer the Mate 10 Pro, the Galaxy Note. I prefer other flagships, but I'd say it's around on par with the OnePlus 5T, maybe a little bit less curvaceous, less comfortable in the hand, but the blue is a really, really nice feature. Moving on to the display, and like I said, 6 inches, full HD, 2160 by 1080 pixels. It looks good. There are a few display settings which make it look a little bit better or worse depending on how you want your phone to look. So you can adjust the color mode from normal through to vivid. It's set to vivid by default. You can also do a few other things, change what apps utilize the full screen display, etc. But at the heart of it is a decent quality display with sufficient sharpness, in spite of the fact it's actually less sharp than the Honor 8 Pro, which is its predecessor. So going for that 18:9 display has meant you've had to take a bit of a hit when it comes to the resolution, but again, it puts it on par with the OnePlus 5T, which is clearly this phone's main competitor. I'd give the display probably around an 8.5 out of 10, a little bit oversaturated by default, over vibrant, better than the Honor 8 Pro, but not quite up there with other flagship IPS displays like the iPhone 8, for example, or flagship OLED displays like the Note 8. But you are paying obviously a lot less for this thing. Now, when you're talking about the user interface, it's Emotion UI, and as you can see, I've got my applications tray set up on here, but by jumping into the display settings, I can actually swap out and remove my applications tray by tapping on home screen style through to standard applications tray setup. It takes a second and eventually repopulates my home screen with my applications tray free setup, which I have folderized, as you can see, and I really do like Emotion UI. A lot of people don't, but I like the fact that you can select multiple items and drag and drop, etc. It's very, very customizable if indeed you are used to it. If you're not, you may prefer a launcher over the top, and thankfully there's plenty of power under the hood of this thing to keep your launcher going. You've got a Kirin 970 with 6 GB of RAM, so you're not going to experience any stutter, any slowdown. I I definitely haven't. What's also worth noting with the user interface, in spite of the fact this runs Android 8 with Emotion UI 8, which is the same as found on the Mate 10 and Mate 10 Pro, this does not support Emotion UI desktop. It doesn't even, from my experience, support HDMI out via USB-C, which is a bit of a pain in the tail end. But the reality is you are only paying £450 for this thing. Thanks to the screen, multimedia is great on this. Movies look excellent. In most of them don't have too much border up top, bottom, or left and right, unless you're watching really, really old stuff. Gaming, it's good, it's really good, but because there are so small bezels up top and to the right hand side, it's like any 18:9 phone. The controls can feel a little bit squished, so you may be better off just moving them a little bit in, if indeed you can, which you can on some games like King of Fighters. What is best about this is the 128 gigs of storage, because that means that you can get loads of games on here, and nice big games too, and that SD card means you can cram loads and loads of movies on here as well. 4K, 2K, whatever it is, we probably have plenty of space. Now the cameras. The front camera is really, really decent. It's nice high resolution, 13 megapixels, and as a result gets plenty of detail. F2 lens means you're also going to get really decent low light performance. Best front camera in the world? Wouldn't necessarily say, but it's one of the most versatile. You've got tons and tons of beauty modes on here. You've got that background bokeh effect that we saw introduced to the Honor range on the Honor 9, and you've also got a really, really ridiculous number of filters that you can use to make your face look really, really ridiculous. But I know what you're concerned about. You're really concerned about that rear camera setup. It is a dual camera, 16 megapixels plus 20 megapixels. So high resolution primary camera than the Mate 10 Pro, for example, but it's actually an inferior camera. There's no image stabilization on here. And image stabilization, optical image stabilization, is preferable over pixels, but you still get good pictures. It's significantly better than the Honor 8 Pro, which I wasn't necessarily sure it would be. Specifically in low light shots look much better. It's also in low light much better than the OnePlus 5. Unfortunately, I haven't compared it side by side with the OnePlus 5T, as this time of year we just couldn't get one in time. Video does look a little bit shaky, but you've got a nice wide angle on here, wider angle than the Mate 10, wider angle than the Mate 10 Pro, so your general stabilization isn't going to be as required to compensate for that handshake as it would if you were a bit more zoomed in, had a less wide angle like on most other phones. Benefit of a wide angle is also you're going to get more friends, more things in shot, but the downside is it's not going to be quite as sharp, and the optical zoom, or digital zoom, sorry, which is 6 times, won't get you quite as close to the action. There are a ton of shooting modes, from light painting right through to the cool Prisma kind of a illustration type effect, and it does a decent job. Generally speaking, I'd say Honor's spot on for the price point. In fact, it's probably one of the best in class. When I get my side-by-side done with a OnePlus 5T, I can categorically say which is better, but you won't be disappointed with the camera on this thing. Also, that Kirin 970 processor means you've got very smart scene detection thanks to that AI story around the chipset. Now, when it comes to connectivity and other key features, like I said, 128 gigs of storage is a real highlight on here, as is the SD card. You've also got 6 gigs of RAM. That IR blaster at the top is a nice touch too. USB-C is a USB 2, so it isn't the fastest out there, but neither is it the slowest. Headphone jack, also good for anyone who doesn't want to be using Bluetooth headphones all the time. The mono bottom firing speaker that I spoke about earlier is a pain for covering up, and it is very easy to cover up. So if you're a gamer, you'll want to use that headphone jack, and there is NFC on here in spite of being an all metal body. The audio recording's also really, really good when recording video, and the microphone's generally a spot on. I found that the fingerprint scanner was nice and quick to respond, really, really good. And as for the face unlock feature, it doesn't actually unlock your phone on the View10 that I've got. It just reveals information about your notifications on your lock screen. So when you lock your phone, if it recognizes your face, your notification information will appear on here. If it doesn't, it will look a lot like this. No notification specifics. But the fingerprint scanner, like I said, nice, quick to respond. I always prefer a fingerprint scanner to face unlock, unless you've got the iPhone 10, which has that next level of face unlock. Moving on to that battery, and 3750 milliamps is really, really decent given how thin this phone is. Charges quickly, not super quickly. Around half an hour of charge will give you the best part of a day's usage, which is nice, but a full charge will take around 2 hours, maybe a little bit more, so not super fast there. But what you do end up with is a full day's use with a full charge, more than a full day's use. It's got around the same kind of battery as the Mate 10, not the Mate 10 Pro. The Mate 10 Pro is still the battery champion in the Huawei camp, and that is unsurprising given the fact it has the same size screen, an OLED screen, which is a little bit more power conserving, and it has a larger capacity cell. That said though, with the lower price point of the Honor View10 and the fact it has the best storage capacity in the world on any smartphone, especially at this price point, 128 gigs plus optional expansion, this is an excellent phone. It has no real glaring shortcomings, save for that bottom mono firing speaker and the lack of OIS. The lack of OIS for picture taking is compensated for pretty well with some very smart software. The design is good, the screen is good, performance is excellent, and the battery lasts all day. Ships with a case, so you even get value adds in the box, and I haven't mentioned that it also has a pre-fitted screen protector, so you also get value adds protection from the front and back once you set it all up. So that means that the Honor View10 gets an easy 9 out of 10. Hopefully you enjoyed this review. If you did, click that thumbs up button, like the channel, subscribe. It's how you stay on top of everything that we do here at BTech.